Good evening. My name is Pat Cawiezell. I'm the buyer and author program coordinator at Magic City Books, and I want to thank you for spending a little bit of your Monday night with us tonight. We are here now in our getting ready to start our fourth month of virtual author events, I think, or third month of virtual author events. We started back in April. We've been doing these pretty much every Monday and Thursday, and now been adding to that events, on non-Monday Thursdays as well. We've got 3 or 4 a week scheduled from now through the end of August that are already booked, and nearly all of those are posted on magiccitybooks.com. We also are starting to add more events into September as well, so we're going to be doing this for a little while, and we really hope that you are able to, you've been enjoying these events, and that you're able to continue to join us 7 o'clock Central Time for our author conversations. We have a really nice event tomorrow night with the author Tom Clavin. Tom is a historian who has written a lot of histories about the American West, and his new book is titled Tombstone. It's a book about Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday and
all those people,
gunfight at the OK Corral and all the other stuff. And so kind of the true story behind that. We had originally scheduled this for, I think April. We were going to do it over at Circle Cinema, do the author event, and then show the Kurt Russell film Tombstone, and really have a fun time with it. And then, of course, everything else happened, and so now we're really excited to be doing it as a virtual author event. But the movie will just have to be, extra credit that you can do and watch the film on your own. And then Thursday, we've got the novelist Julie Oranger coming for a virtual author event, and we're really excited about that. Great events next week and the following week. And a really good one next Wednesday that I really want to make sure that I mention, which is the debut novel of an Oklahoma Cherokee author, Kelly Jo Ford. Her book, Crooked Hallelujah, was just released today, or tomorrow. I guess it comes out tomorrow. And so we're really excited about that and being able to do an event with Kelly Jo. This is a book that we're all very, very excited about, and the publishers have very high hopes for it, and we certainly have high hopes for it. She's going to be in conversation with Brandon Hobson. Brandon is also a native writer, and Brandon's new novel was just announced today, and so that book is coming in February, and so that's going to be the follow-up to his National Book Award finalist, Where the Dead Sit Talking. So a lot of great stuff that's coming up, and we're really excited about our schedule for the next few weeks and months and into next year now, I guess. Tonight we are really happy to be welcoming a unique author program. This is a collaboration between 2 artists, a poet and a photographer, and something that I think really works well for this kind of virtual event, because we're not all in the same place, and we can be joined by both of them, even though we're not all in Tulsa. And so we're really excited to be welcoming Sam Joyner and Francine Ringold to the program tonight. Neither one of them is a stranger to those of us that have been around Tulsa for a little while. Sam's career as a federal judge, spanned decades, and while at the same time that he was doing that, he was also pursuing photography, and has had quite an accomplished career as a photographer, with his work showing at different places and around town, specifically in May Duran Gallery. And then, of course, Francine Ringold is, the 2-time poet laureate of the state of Oklahoma, and longtime director of the Nimrod International Literary Journal, and something that we're all, those of us here in the Tulsa books and writing and authors and author event community, Nimrod has been a shining star that really held the ground for a long time and brought a lot of great writers to our community, and kind of fostered that spirit that Magic City Books hopes to kind of continue to develop in partnership with Nimrod and the other organizations that are out there. So we're extremely excited to be welcoming Sam and Francine for our event tonight. Thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. We need to make sure we get in a thank you to Magic City Books for facilitating this process and for your efforts as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to get going here. And I just want to tell all the readers that at the bottom of the screen that you're watching on, you're going to be able to see something. You're going to be able to see some controls there. The Q&A function is where you can go to pose any questions that you might have for Sam or Francine or both. Please use that. We're going to sprinkle those throughout our conversation tonight. So when you have a question, please use that function and be able to go that way. And then we'll be posting some links as we go along here to purchase the book through Magic City Books. They're available at the store. And then also we have an online store that allows you to be able to purchase the book from us no matter where you may be joining us. So I wanted to just kind of get started with talking about how the two of you got to know each other some time ago, and just kind of in looking through some of the bio stuff in the book and things. It seems like the two of you, really the partnership had maybe didn't begin with Nimrod, but certainly grew with Nimrod, and maybe it did. I wasn't sure.
No, it definitely did. And actually, I met Sam, I hate to say this, but probably 30 years ago in Ardmore. Is that right? Where you, Sam?
Lawton. No, I was in
Lawton. I'm so sorry. And we're
through town like a troubadour. And
right. I was an artist in residence for the state and staying with one of Sam's many girlfriends. And so I met Sam because of his photography at that time. And then when he came to Tulsa, of course, many years later, he became involved even more with the arts and eventually was the chair of the Nimrod Advisory Board. So, and he did a great job for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
yeah, I can't add anything to that, except I was always amazed by the variety of Fran's talents. She's into opera, she's into dance, she's into literature, and is a rich, marvelous lady with lots of talent.
So the collaboration that the two of you have put together here, the book is titled The Way We See Now, and it's a collaboration of photography and poetry. And this is a book where, you took the photos that Sam had taken kind of over a number of years. It wasn't
Right.
just one series of subjects or anything like that, but these photos, and it sounded to me like it was sort of one at a time. He'd send you a photo, Fran, you'd kind of take a look at it. If it inspired some poetry, then a poem came out, and if it didn't, then you waited until the next photo arrived.
That's pretty much the way, but it's almost as if every one of the photos, because they are so distinctive, was an inspiration. And but some were easier than others to write from or see into, because that's just the way it is. And also I very much applied research, because I didn't know anything about many of the places that Sam had photographed. And I remember Denise Levertov saying that it's so important for a writer to know the names of things and to know where they come from. And so I applied that. That's why there are footnotes in so many of the poems. And so that's how we operated. And before long, we had 26 or more photos and poems and started putting them together.
That's great.
Pat, I just got a text or a chat from someone saying they're not able to hear me still. I'd hate for my gems to be wasted. David Gill, let me know if this doesn't improve, but I'm about 1 foot from the screen and talking as loud as I can talk.
I do think that is a little bit better there, Sam. I think that we're going to have a little bit better success with that there. Just raise the the volume of your speech just a little bit. And I think we should be in pretty good shape there.
Yeah.
Good. Sam, a lot of the photos that are in the book and a lot of your work is focused on architecture. And I just wanted to ask you kind of where that inspiration comes from, what really attracts you to architecture as a photographer.
Well, it sort of goes back to my whole reason for moving from the law to the art world, and that's to live in the world of feelings, imagination, and intuition. And I think it's just I listen to my feelings, and architecture is where they were. I love design, I love architecture, and I love isolating particular design elements that the architect has created. For example, I've spent substantial time at the Getty Museum in Los Angeles and have 5 images I really love of the architecture of the building.
Yeah. The poems, you know, one of the things that I think was noticeable to me as I was reading the poems and looking at the photographs was the direction that it went sometimes. And it must have been interesting, Sam, for you to see what direction Fran took the poem that the photograph inspired with her. Maybe not anything that you were ever thinking about, you know, when you were taking the photo or developing the photo or you know, evaluating it later on, just being able to see.
I'm holding up the Getty Museum and it's not
Yes.
photographing very well at all, but I'm sorry.
Nice.
Interrupt you.
Yeah.
Well, so while I've got the floor, I want to say I've been thrilled to work with Fran for this book, and of course, in her other efforts. Through the process of ekphrastix, she finds embedded in each image substance and meaning well other than what I had originally thought. And she writes with an elegance of style and substance, and I would encourage everybody not to miss her intro to the book on page 7.
Oh, thank you. Well, I wanted to, since you mentioned the Getty, and if you don't mind, I'd like to read a little bit, at least of that poem, because it is one that goes so far, it seems so far away, but when you write a poem, everything enters into it. Your memory, what you see, what you hear, what you taste, and also other writing that I had done. And I had some secret information, which is in this poem, which I probably could be sued for, I don't know, but here's the poem. Here at the Getty, all is serenity, balance, repose, the arch of promise, patterns of light, even love in that embracing curve. When J. Paul Getty came to Tulsa, he had no thought of a museum or villa. The war was on, Spartan needed him. Another war loomed when Charlie sent back the young Barry girl, a fly on the wall, a threat from a bush, a stinging spider who would not let go, would not go quietly into her nest of madness. Ah, Helen of Troy. Ah, Joan of Orleans and Joan of Barry. You did bring them down for a moment. Yet these shining windows, curving in the sunlight, cast their struts and shadows with not a hint of the past. So the secret knowledge probably is on 2 things. I'll let you in on it. That J. Paul Getty ever lived in Tulsa. And if you want more, you have to read footnotes, or you have to read another book that I wrote, which was the biography of Oklahoma's first lawyer, whose name was Rosenstein. And he was a fabulous man, and he was J. Paul Getty's lawyer. So I have newspaper clippings and everything to prove that this is accurate information.
Yeah, that's the excitement of most of the poems is she has done so much research. There's one image in regard to the MC Escher problem. Well, maybe we're going to talk about that later, the Monasterio. But I noticed you began the poem talking about Escher's prominent proboscis nose. So there's a lot of humor in these poems as well.
Yes, right, right. This is the most gorgeous photo, and I'm ruining it, holding it up. But I guess Sam, certainly Escher did not design this monastery, but maybe it reminded you of Escher because of all the divisions of the plane and the cutouts. Is that why?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. About everyone that looks at the image framed and placed on the wall says it reminds them of Escher. And I said, who is that guy that drew the two hands drawing each other? And that's MC Escher.
Well, it's an absolutely amazing photo, and I don't know how you ever took it. It covers so much.
Well, there's a long story behind that photograph. Pat, I don't know whether you want us to, how much, if we spend too much time reminiscing, you let us know. But,
this is exactly what we're here for. We want these stories. That's right.
The photograph and the monastery is in Catania, Italy. And I had seen some photographs indicating that the building was there that I think I would like to go photograph. So I was in Italy for a couple of weeks and around Catania, which is in Sicily, right off the toe of Italy. And I hired a guide to help me find the monastery. And we went up the hill, down the hill, around the alley, walked down the street, and walked up another street. And we ended up in Vincenzo Bellini's bedroom. I was looking for a Benedictine monastery, but his English and my Italian didn't work very well. And it seems that Bellini, who is an opera composer, for those that know opera, was born in Catania, Italy, and they were all very proud of that fact. But finding nothing noteworthy in the bedroom of Bellini, we went again the next day and found the monastery. What that is.
Oh my goodness. So sorry. I was trying to get Bellini's Norma.
Oh my God.
An amazing cocktail that was created in Venice in 1934.
Well, now you know more than you
Giuseppe,
want.
just like you.
So this Giuseppe is going to show you how to make the best Bellini at home.
All right.
So this cocktail was invented in a place in Venice called Harry's Bar, and it was frequented by...
I don't know. I can't seem to get rid of it, but I think I'll get rid of the phone. That'll be the best thing to do.
Okay. All right.
So let's make this awesome cocktail. Let's see
They
what
introduced me to this resident Italian guy with a set of plans in front of him.
cocktail to make.
He kept looking at me, Posa, which means close. And I kept screaming, Oklahoma, Oklahoma, far away, far away.
Mhm.
So ultimately, he looks at me, grabs the large skeleton key, throws it over to an underling, and points to the building. So I was allowed 30 minutes to photograph in that incredible facility, and got it done.
That's wonderful. Well, Carol mentions that the Escher photo has the ambiguity of planes and dimensions, which I think likely came from Sam's choice of angle, light, and all his intuitive vision. A brilliant photo. So,
Yes, 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 it is.
yes, yes. There are just a few photos in the book that feature people in the photo, but one that really stood out to me was Children in Ireland. And Fran, I'd wonder if you would read the poem that accompanies that photo, The Promise of the Poster.
Now, see, I thought you were going to ask me to read Mr. Tupper. So what page is that? Do you know?
47.
Thank you. You're so good.
I did think I was going to ask you to read Mr. Tupper, but then I thought, well, I just really like this photo of the children. So,
Okay. So yes, And that's because you have, what, a 19-month-old?
A 19-month-old, and my wife and I did our honeymoon in Dublin 2 years ago. So Ireland just kind of sticks out for me as well. And yes.
Right, right.
Yes.
And they are darling. Okay. So this is the promise of the poster. And if you notice, the poster is right behind the children to the right on your screen. Who are these children with their seductive smiles? The doll-like one with red hair is especially enticing. Their plump cheeks melt hearts faster than the ice cream they devour in hungry shapes. When we grow up, the poster behind them shouts, when we grow up, we can sponsor a puppy. Please stay as you are, round and soft and free. Even the promise of a puppy is not worth submitting to the temptation to grow up. Sometimes it takes an entire lifetime to become a child. I believe Picasso said something like that.
He did. And it's a lifetime to become as a child, which was his goal, is to become as a child.
Right, right.
I love that stands in there. Please stay as you are, round and soft and free. Even the promise of a puppy is not worth submitting to the temptation to grow up. That's right.
Well, I think maybe I thought of that because as you grow older, you become more childlike. And so, I mean, you're free to do and say what you want because people might actually think you're senile, but then you're not. You're just free.
As I was going to say, there's nothing posed in that picture. It's in Cawiezell, Ireland. And we were just walking along the harbor, and those kids were sitting down, tallest on the left, smallest on the right, and all making funny, ugly faces, crossing their eyes for my photograph. And then that poster happened to be in the back. So that's just a little serendipity that happens in the photography world.
Well, because you said serendipity, Sam, then I want to bring in Mr. Tupper because he's my favorite person.
Yeah.
May I do that? Here's the marvelous photo that Sam took of Mr. Tupper, part of it anyway, that I'm showing you. And so you just happened to meet Mr. Tupper, is that right? Sam, I held it up. So.
Yeah, that's actually in Maine, Rockville, Maine, and I had been up there for a 3-week photography school early on, and I was roaming the waterfront looking for photographs, and he was there and with the cans in his pocket, and I just went over and asked him, "Do you mind if I take your photograph?" He says, "No, but you'll have to send me copies." And I said, "I'll be happy to do that." And so I did. I took the photographs and I tried to make him appear as noble and as honored as I could. And I think we did that. I think it's a positive image that's been created of him. But I got a letter back after I sent the photographs from his daughter. And she was telling me that he had been the town drunk and she was embarrassed by him being in the town drunk. Then her heart was breaking because she did not go to see him because of his appearance. And now she wishes she had, and then he met with an untimely demise. He was not able to get back into his house, so he was living on the streets and met with an untimely demise. There's enough detail.
Well, as I look at this portrait that you have up so nicely on the screen, I was thinking how much the photographer or the painter, in the case of most ekphrastic poems, gives the writer. And I thought if you all who are listening and watching would look at the photo as I read it, you'll see how much I got from Sam. It's called Mr. Tupper Goes to Heaven. How she wished she could stretch her small arms, reach high and gather his soft, stray hairs, feel the brush of his light beard on her cheek. But he had those beer cans in his pockets. That was the way it was. That was the way it was, the wrinkles lining his shirt as if the weeds punctured the tough fabric and untucked his very soul. The rosy cheeks bursting with smiles, the eyes gazing upward where a little bottle floated like an omen of forgiveness. And there too, the scant image of the daughter lost somewhere in the blue-gray haze. Once she found him face down in the street, yet he cocked his head and smiled. The cops thought him funny and let him roam back to his camp in the underground. She could not laugh. That was the way it was. Yet his shoulders were strong, and his baby teeth shone from his gaping and hopeful mouth. And the promise, the mere promise of his strong hugs were enough. She wrapped him in a prayer shawl, waiting. He did not disappoint. So a lot there from the photograph and then also from my own history. And I won't tell you what.
That's right. That's right. Some things remain just for the poet, right?
Right.
Right. We were. I wanted to go back just your relationship as we were talking a little bit before we got started, and you both have grown children and grandchildren, and so just your relation. I think that time kind of plays a component in a lot of this work. Certainly the cover, an image of a clock, kind of gives us a clue that that's going to take place in the book. But just kind of where do those relationships, your grown children, your grandchildren, and where do those kind of fit into this work?
Sam, you want to answer that first?
Well, I can tell you this, that too many photographers spend too much time taking photographs of rocks and trees when they don't take any pictures of their own family. So that's something you need to watch out for as a photographer. But the extent to which having those family relationships, I think it just increases your sensitivity. You're able to intuitive capabilities as well. If you have those family connections, that it's going to end up showing in your work and in your poetry, I suppose.
Definitely. And the whole process that we went through of collaborating is something that I have experienced on many levels, certainly now with grown children and grown grandchildren who are always adding to and receiving from and giving me everything, care, certainly, but information, and that, my website was built by a son. My daughter takes particular care of me. My other daughter, who is away, has been inspiring me during this website by sending little text. And my other son is a salesperson who knows how to sell things, which, by the way, I wanted to say that thank you, which I didn't say at first, Pat. You do such a marvelous job at Magic City. And I have contacted a lot of bookstores, and no one has the sophisticated system going on the virtual interviews that you all do. It's just amazing. Also, I've been in the bookstore, and you carry a wonderful collection there. So
well, thank you.
But getting back to the idea of collaboration and families, of course, as Sam said, they're your first tutors about how important it is to listen to other people and to speak to other people and find out what is their strengths, and they help you with yours. And I often say we're always collaborating with something. You know, people think we write in an ivory tower, and of course it's just not true. It's the very air we breathe with history or possibility. And we learn that from our families and from teaching, in my case. I'm sure Sam did as a judge. And so I think that's a wonderful question, which I never expected. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We have a question here from our audience, and we're going to get to as many of these as we can as we're going through. We're just going to kind of add them in when we get them here. This one is from Jack. This question is for Sam. He says, most of us see in color. How do you conceptualize your black and white photographs?
Well, the question always comes up as to why these photographs are in black and white. Kind of reminds me of a conversation I had with my old law partner some 30 years ago, back when I had law partners. He said, Sam, I do not understand why we have perfectly good color film. Why would you take a picture in black and white when we now have color film? And of course, the answer to that is varied, but color film doesn't basically float my boat as much as the black and white does. There was a time in which to be a piece of art, for a photograph to be a piece of art, it had to be in black and white and not in color. That goes back to the days of Ansel Adams, Edward Steichen, Edward Weston, and Steichen, I guess, and his Family of Man exhibit. But no longer. There is some good work in color. Annie Leibovitz out of New York City comes to mind, but I still prefer the black and white. For me, color dominates the image and too often turns the image into a postcard realist image. Black and white is more of an abstraction. I mean, you know, the whole world is not in black and white. And it directs the viewer to line, composition, texture, in rich black and bright whites. The viewer contributes more to the interpretation of the image in black and white than he does in color. There are fewer subtle ambiguities. So there is a comment that I read that says, color photographs are like prose, black and white are like poetry.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm totally and completely dedicated to the black and white world. I love it.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
And it loves you.
Yes, well, and I love my images. I'm a fanatic as far as my feeling for my image. Every one of these pictures I love.
Right.
Literally.
Well, Sam, I wonder if you would, we'll put up another image, this one of the Carnegie Mellon stairway in Pittsburgh. And I wonder if first you kind of talk us through a little bit of kind of how this photo came into being and what inspired it. And then Fran, if you wouldn't mind reading the poem that accompanies it, Vaulting with Raphael Gustavino, page 32 and 33 of the book. And let me get the image up here so that our viewers can see that. And Sam, if you'll just kind of take us through a little bit of the photo here.
Well, there is a Spanish fellow who actually worked with his son, a construction man that came over to the United States in the 1900s, I think 1918, maybe Fran remembers in more detail. But he created these incredible architectural statements with the use of tile. There is the Carnegie Mellon University staircase. This is, I think, an exact image of it. I asked my nephew to go stand in the middle of the picture, because otherwise you wouldn't even know it's a staircase.
Right.
He's been referred to as a monk on several occasions. I've got like 4 or 5 other photographs of this Spaniard's work, mainly in the New York City subway system, in the metro station. And I think they're just incredible. They are incredible pieces of architecture, as a matter of fact. But do you remember more about Raphael, Fran?
Well, that he brought Catalan methods to the United States. It's one of the examples of what immigrants do bring to our country. And so then he and his son developed a company. And so there are many buildings and, as you say, that gorgeous tile in the subway system, which in New York, where most people don't look up to see, they're dashing into the subway, as I often did. But it is amazing what Guastafino, and I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but when I saw that name, I thought, oh, there's vino in it. There's wine in it. And that's another thing. So you start playing with what everything means, what a name means. And so it was not that much work to write from this image, which is so amazing. So at the beginning of the poem, first of all, the poem is called Vaulting with Raphael Guastavino. And there's a little quote at the beginning from Andrew Carnegie, "My heart is in the work," which I like very much. So in this poem, I seem to be addressing the construction worker. Raphael Guastavino, just your name lifts the sky, speaks of a carafe of wine, a taste lingering and delicious, and an angel, an archangel who heals. O Spanish immigrant son, with the strength of firm mortar, how with your very hands you bless the buildings you built with a herringbone of interlocking tiles, creating vaults impenetrable and majestic, a system of structural coils like looping threads to carry the pilgrim ever upwards, as if lifted by Yahweh. So I guess it was that lift that I was mainly trying to get into the poem.
Right. Yeah.
You know, Pat, now might be an appropriate time to enter this idea. But a couple of weeks ago, I was looking at the book, spending a little quality time with the images and the poems, and the TV came on with the apocalyptic pandemic report of the day. And I was sitting there, and it kind of brought a calm over me to be working with these images, reminding me that there's still beauty in the world, there's still happy feelings in the world. This book does a good job of nurturing that feeling. There is another comment by a writer named Thomas More that I wanted to share, which relates to the same image, the same idea about photography. In photography, you see things that pass by unnoticed in the flow of life. The photograph empties me of agendas and worries and places me in the rare atmosphere of pure wonder. I mean, that says it so well. That experience of pure wonder is what we're looking for, and it's what these images can provide. You got to remember, we got a gorgeous world, and there's much to be celebrated.
That's
All right,
right.
that's my religious comment for the day.
No, that's great.
Well, Sam, I wanted to talk about that just a little bit. As you're out, as you're out photographing things, are there times when you see the beauty and and you have your camera and everything seems to be right and the images still don't work? I mean, what is it? What kind of makes the best photograph come through? Is there a quality? Do you know at the time that you're taking it, or does it get kind of made in the dark room or something along those lines?
You know, you've got to be, as a photographer, you got to be diligent, you got to be a hard worker, you got to get up early, you got to go to bed late. But the method by which you find images that work is pretty much involuntary.
Yeah.
You've got to let your automatic feelings, intuitive capabilities, imagination roam free, and they will ultimately tell you when it's time, when it's the composition you like,
Mm-hmm.
when it's time to push this shutter. There is, you know, and I've worked at photography for, you know, some 40 years now, and it's most people, you can tell now how to you know, you wonder, why is one image a remarkable, beautiful image and another one, what's the difference between that and a bad and a good picture?
Mm-hmm.
There's some thought that light has a lot to do with it. There was a poet by the name of Czesław Miłosz, now deceased, previously was on the faculty at Berkeley, and he was obviously sensitive to what photography is about when he said, quote, "I too love the light, perhaps the light only." He's saying that the quality of the light in the image is more important than the subject or the content
Mm-hmm.
photograph. And that's true. I mean, you know, it's got to be sweet light to make a good photograph. And if you've got a photograph with bad light, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
That's so interesting because that has come up today for me. And also I asked you how you got this image of Lovely Lane.
Right.
And you said, I mean, it's so amazing. And you said something about you just shot straight up. And so that's what I really wrote about. And it's Lovely Lane is a church in, I don't remember. Oh, Baltimore. It's in Baltimore. And part of it was designed by the infamous Stanford White, and that's another thing you might want to look up, but I'm not going to talk about. So it's Lovely Lane, a design to light the world. And I used a quote from W.S. Merwin, who was also fascinated with light. And he said, "Inside the light, there is a stone, and he knew it. Inside the stone, there was a light, and all day he kept finding it." And that fascination with the light. And this is another thing about poetry people might want to know. Oh, well, when you look, I can't seem to do it. When you look at the poem on the page, you'll see that I tried to replicate the shape of the image in the shape of the poem. I didn't always do that, but this one was so pronounced. And so it begins, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but that he aimed straight up, lit the chandelier on the 3rd floor. You have it, Sam. Thank you.
This might be a good time to point out that in the book itself, the photographic image is on the left, and then the next page is on the right. And it continues throughout the book that way. But this is clever, in which Fran has created some graphic lines with the use of the words.
And it just seemed to demand that in this particular image and one or two others. So maybe there are some other questions, or
We do have a couple of audience questions. Yeah, I'd like to get to these. And Mary asks, this is a question for Fran. What from your time on Nimrod do you remember most fondly, and of what makes you the most proud as the longtime editor?
what a nice question. There are so many things, but I actually, you know, because I was editor for 47 years, we brought some absolutely marvelous people, one of whom was W.S. Merwin. But I would say that it was the issues, the foreign issues that we did. And I actually have one right here. Again, you can't see, this is our Arabic issue. And the fact that we did this in 1981 is still a surprise to me. But it seemed to be, we always like to approach a theme that was just on the edge of emerging. And certainly in 1981, we were doing that. And the whole story of how we got the cover, how we got the poems, remember this is, and stories, would take many hours to tell, but I had seen this miniature Quran that's on the cover. I'll try to hold it on. Yeah, I had seen it in an exhibit in a museum. So I wrote to the curator of that Arabic exhibit, and she said, oh, I'm glad to give you that image. And she still had the color separations. We did things that way.
Yeah,
then.
right.
It was so expensive to do color separations. And she said, however, I sent it back to my designer in England. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm going to England tomorrow. And they were so wonderful. I got off the plane stumbling, and 5 minutes later, there was a designer with the color separation. So it's just, that's one of the many things. We have Nobel Prize winners in this issue. So that's this issue and the Chinese issue and the East Indian issue. Those are all still the closest to my heart, despite the awards issues, etc.
Sam, do you have any, kind of fond memories and things that you're proud of with your time with Nimrod?
Oh, absolutely. It was a blast. We had an annual meeting or a conference and award ceremony every year. It was my pleasure to introduce Fran each year, but it's kind of, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8, 9, 10, and I was still there trying to find a fresh way to introduce Fran. We had a blast. She usually made an entrance, something like Loretta Young. And Fran's a dancer anyway, so.
A would-be dancer.
I used to call myself the head Nimrod, but I'm not sure if you thought that was a very good idea. Was not head Nimrod. Fran was the head Nimrod.
We've got a few more here from our audience. Jack has this question for Fran. These started with photographs from someone you know. What other inspirations do you go to or experience for your other works?
Wow, that's a great question. Thank you. Well, first of all, I have written other ekphrastic poems, which are poems that come from paintings or photographs, like about Chagall, for example.
Mhm.
But as far as other ways of being, quote, turned on, there are so many prompts. When I used to teach writing of poetry, I used prompts very often. And prompts can come from anywhere. Quotes, as I quoted the Merwin poem, something you see outside. Like, I'm very fortunate in Los Angeles to be living right near the water, in fact, almost on the water. And it can be a boat passing by, it can be a particular plant that I never knew anything about plants, because I'm originally from New York City, so I don't know anything, you know. And so now I've become very interested in, for example, in nasturtiums. I never knew what they were. You know, you can eat them, or parts of them, and they have the most beautiful broad leaves. So it can be almost anything that turns you on. I would say ultimately something that is inside of you emerges as you move along in the writing, that again you didn't know was there.
Right.
And that's a good thing. I never ask anyone, tell me how you feel. Never. Because your feelings come out from the details, from the shapes.
Yes.
So I could give a whole course here, but
Sure. Right.
Well, you know, it's
Well,
not taking a photograph. I mean, you get the same impetus, you get the same instincts, the same feelings. And in one way you end up with a poem, the other way you end up with a negative.
Yeah. Steve asks, your fascination with the soul of New Mexico shows in your photos of the region. And just maybe to talk a little bit about your experience in New Mexico, and then broader beyond that, you know, so many of these photographs, having spent a lot of, you know, your career in Tulsa and in Oklahoma and living here for so long, but so many of these photographs and so much of this work is from all over the world, all over the United States. And I know that you've talked about just kind of finding that beauty, but you know, the importance of travel and seeing new things and fresh things. Maybe just talk a little bit about that.
Well, it's curious, out of all 28 images, there's only one image that was taken in Tulsa.
Yeah.
And that is a spiral staircase at the 420 South Boston building on the 22nd floor. It doesn't start till you get to the 22nd floor. It turned out to have a beautiful image right here in Tulsa, but that's the only one. It's just, there's something about being out of town that frees up your psyche to where it gets the radar going and you start looking and listening to possibilities. And an example of that is this picture here, which is called Ballet at Antelope Canyon. Antelope Canyon is in Utah. And I am photographing straight up, as Fran mentioned, in Lover's Lane Church. But you know, you find your pictures, and when it happens, it happens. It doesn't happen as much here in Tulsa. What you're trying to do with your photography, and with, you know, it depends on where that pure wonder is, that atmosphere of pure wonder. That's what you're looking for.
Yeah. We did have a question from over on the Facebook feed. Marianne wanted to know how long the collaboration took when you first kind of started working on this through till the book being published. How long did that take?
I think, Fran, you have an idea, I think.
yeah, it's really was 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
From the initial collaboration and then finally getting the book together. And then I do want to mention Susan Komen, who produced the book, did such a beautiful job on the design and choosing a paper, which is something called silk and feels like silk, and being sure that every image was sharp. She is masterful, and she's a Tulsan.
Yeah, I might mention, Pat, that it was printed at Western Printing here in Tulsa. Most photo books, most coffee table books are printed in China, or at least far, far away from here,
Right.
because of the cost and the quality. But we got amazing quality. We used the offset process, and they allowed me to come out every day and look at proofs.
Mm-hmm.
Needed more black, they'd put a little more black. If it needed to be lightened up, they would lighten it up. And I think we got an incredible product right here in town.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and we do have links to purchase the book in the chat. You can also visit magiccitybooks.com and follow the links that way to be able to pick up a copy. We're going to have them in the store tomorrow as well, and the rest of the week. And so you can come visit us at the corner of Archer and Detroit. But if you're not getting out of the house these days, or if you're joining us from somewhere else in the country, we'll be happy to ship it to you as well. So I wanted to see if we could close with one final image and poem. There's an image called "Peace Begins in the Imagination." It's the very first image of the book and the poem that accompanies it. Peace Begins, and we're going to be able to put this up on the screen now.
Oh, good.
So we can kind of take a look at this. And this is another one. This is another example, I think, of what you had done, Fran, with that other poem that kind of staircase down and kind of
Right.
same
In this case,
design of the photo.
Right. In this case, it is the space.
Yes.
It's not the shape so much as the space between the lines. If you
Right.
look at it, that I felt that's really what this photograph did for me. It was space and peace, and of course that inverted image. So it's called Peace Begins. Calm washes over masts and quiets the sea, circles back, parts clouds, plunging light where it has never been, illuminating the quest for silence, or a lament to shroud unspoken longing. Then claim it your own and stop.
Beautiful.
Pat, I don't, that's in Rockport, Maine, curiously,
Yeah.
not far from where I took Ira Tupper's photograph. And I usually don't name photographs because I don't want to create some preconceived concept in the viewer's eyes or mind. But this one just seemed to call for it. It was about peace. It looks like a globe. The boats are at peace in the middle of the water. So it got named. I think it's an appropriate name.
Yes. Well, it's a gorgeous image.
It's handheld 35 millimeter camera with no tripod. It's like 5:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
But you need high-tech equipment to be a photographer.
Well, it's a beautiful image and it's a beautiful poem. This book is full of beautiful images and beautiful poems. We've only shown a few of them. We've only heard a few of them. I highly encourage you to pick up a copy and probably pick up a copy for someone in your life as well. They're going to enjoy it too. So thank you so much, both of you, for joining us this evening. We really appreciate it. We've had a wonderful time.
Thank you. Good luck to everyone, and search for that atmosphere of pure wonder.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
That's right.
Thank you, Pat.
That's right. Thank you. You all have a wonderful evening. Thank you all for joining us. We will see you again real soon. We've got virtual events coming again this week, Tuesday and Thursday, next week on through the rest of the summer. So stay safe, keep reading. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.